this is where we're going to get a little off the rails because I'm choosing to point this question to Mark, but I know I feel a little bit personally attacked by this. So I wanted to ask you guys, starting with Mark, do you think there is any malicious intent here on Google's part?
So like jaded me, who's tired of these things from Google, says like, absolutely, yes, this is malicious intent. Like Google is out to push advertisers out of this. They want everything to be automated. They want us fiddling in things less so they can make more money. They're trying to push us out of the picture. But like that is like me to a T. So I think it's malicious, but I do want to like take a step back and like act like, okay, I am not Mark Saltarelli. Like, what is this? And I think the intent that's there isn't necessarily malicious. I think their intent is to generate more revenue, which will have malicious effects on us. But the intent is more of like a corporate greed mentality in my mind. And it's really showing that Google like really hasn't taken any time and actually care how advertisers actually use their platform and what is important to them. They don't care about that. They're not concerned about what is important to the people using Google Ads. They're really just trying to make more money. So like they aren't necessarily outright trying to sabotage our performance, but it's a very clear side effect of them trying to get us to spend more money. So really for me, it's just an abuse of corporate power. They know they have us, we can't leave, and they're just trying to nickel and dime us while we're stuck here as much as they can on these bad matches. But like right now, I'm really angry about this, but I'm just looking at it and I'm like, you're just gonna keep trying to push us and push us and push us. And eventually people will start leaving because they won't be making any money on Google Ads. So I think eventually left the pedal backwards. But yeah, so I think it's malicious to them, it's malicious to us, but I don't necessarily think that's the intent.
Yeah. Julie, do you have any thoughts on the intent here or the bigger picture on Google's part?
I wouldn't characterize it as malicious. Do I think that it's going to harm a lot of advertisers? Yeah. And I don't know that that was necessarily part of the thinking that went into this. I will say my own personal experience in dealing with product people at Google Ads, they're all very passionate and enthusiastic about what they're doing. But, you know, when I have raised a question about like transparency into data, you know, when it comes to things like, you know, I know we're going to talk about this later, but like the responsive search ads, like you don't really have a lot of insight into data. My experience has been that the people involved in working on these products often are genuinely a little bit perplexed of like, but why would you need to know that? It's a really interesting, just like difference in perspective as far as what's needed and what's desired by advertisers. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that I feel like this is malicious. I think it's going to cause harm, but I don't think they set out to cause harm, you know, intentionally. I think that this is part of the push towards less, more black box, like less transparency. So the automation of more things. I think that this is part of that, you know, that train that has been out of the station for, you know, a couple of years now. So that's sort of my take on it. I think, you know, if do no harm is sort of, you know, what they were trying to do, which I would not put that as Google's motto at all. They're failing miserably at this part. But I don't think that people were sitting around the room like, how can we screw over advertisers? I think that that's the net effect of what's going to happen. I think that the intentions and why this stuff is being done is different than that. But, you know, we're left to deal with the aftermath, and we're left to deal with what it does, you know, to clients and to accounts that, you know, that we manage. So our perspective obviously is very different from whatever's happening inside the Google Hive.
Mm-hmm. I know our team at Cypress North, we have like a marketing book club, and we read, it seems like forever ago, but Mark was on our team. So it was in the last year, OKR book, about how Google kind of started the concept of OKRs and how they work at the organization. And it kind of feels like that, like maybe the product people and the people doing the work every day, like have the best intentions and they want to make good products. And sometimes we have news stories about awesome new features. You know, there's new conversion optimization categories this week. We love to hear it. But it seems like at a very high level, what they're really trying to do at the end of the day is make more money, increase their bottom line. And sometimes that trickles down into really discouraging day to day for the advertisers, I'd say.
It's true.
So I want to move on because in the announcement, they say they're only going to show terms that were searched by a significant number of users. This is another thing that Julie has touched on a bit already. So it says the search terms report only includes terms that a significant number of users search for, even if a term is clicked. So I wanted to ask you to expand on that, Julie. What do you think of this concept and the word significant? And who do you think will suffer the most from this change?
It all depends on what that threshold is. And that threshold, up until now has not been shared. I think that in the interest of transparency, that threshold should be shared. There's no reason not to share what that threshold is. So you will know that you are if impressions or clicks or, if it's below the certain threshold, you're not going to see it in your reporting. I think we don't know what that is. So that's causing, I think, a lot of agita because nobody, what is significant, right? Is significant more than 2? Is significant, more than 20? Is it more what is that threshold? Because for smaller accounts or accounts that have lower volume, depending on what that, quote unquote, significant threshold is, they could lose access to a good portion of their data versus a bigger account. It might not matter as much, right? So they're doing their volume on terms that they're never even going to come close to this threshold. So they're not as concerned about it. So I think one thing that Google could do that would sort of quell or at least clarify, and get people to think about this in a more tangible way would be to just come right out and say, hey, here's what those thresholds are. Because right now we're imagining the worst, right?
Yeah. Is it 2 clicks? Is it 20 clicks?
Right. Who knows?
No idea.
Who knows?
Andrea, what are your thoughts?
I was going to say some people started doing the math. If I only take out the clicks I've received 1 click, I'm gonna end up losing 25% of my search queries. And some other people have gone and say, well, if we're talking about 5 clicks, it might be 50% of the clicks I've received in a regular day or in a month. So as Julie said, it's what is the threshold? Because in very small accounts that only spend maybe $100 a day, that could be a really big portion of what they get. So is it a way for me to spend more so I can see more? Or what do I do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to get your thoughts on a tweet from Jonathan Hochman yesterday, which I think made a really good point, at J.E. Hochman on Twitter. He said, if these other terms are insignificant, then Google shouldn't charge for them. When Google takes our money, they should be 100% transparent and report every single search query that was charged, which I think is a really good point. What's significant to Google is so different than what's significant to the advertiser. Like what you saw? Of course you did. If you're looking for more, Marketing O'Clock releases new episodes every Friday with the digital marketing news of the week. You can subscribe wherever you consume your podcasts, or click to watch the full episode, the next news story, or read all the articles from the show.